Here's a big topic also. I was surprised to learn how many people have lucid dreams. And before writing this book, there were some things I knew well, the brain surgery part, the anatomy part, the neurotransmitter part. When I heard about lucid dreaming, I thought, this can't be real. In fact, the book has 2 chapters out of 9 dedicated to it. And so lucid dreaming, now stay with me, we had waking brain transitions to sleeping brain, and that sleep entry is an interesting period. That 15 minutes is a hybrid state, partially awake, partially asleep. And the measurements support that. Then you're in your dreaming brain, and when you're waking up, if there's a mismatch there, you can have sleep paralysis that we talked about. In the middle, while you're dreaming, and the electrodes in the sleep lab are proving you're dreaming with something called sleep spindles, so it's not just somebody waking up and pretending to say things as if they're dreaming, right? We have to be skeptical. In the middle now, not sleep entry, not sleep exit, you can have, in lucid dreaming, a return of awareness that you're in the dream. Typically, dreams are described as in the driver's seat of a car that you can't control, and then when you're done with the dream, you go, oh, that was a dream. With lucid dreaming, you're in the driver's seat of the car, you can't control it, but you're aware, hey, I'm actually in a dream. And how would you prove that, right? Like that just sounds so out there. Remember the first slide I showed you? And I was showing you the frontal lobes, and it's tamped down, the executive network, the illogical is accessible to us now because the executive network is no longer as relevant. Well, look what happens here when you do brain scans. When you're awake, that front red is active. When you're dreaming, that red is gone, right? This is just the way we described it on the first slide. What they're finding was in lucid dreaming, when people describe there's a return of some awareness, I'm in the dream, it's consistent with the return of activation in that executive network frontal cortex part of the brain. Like, this is a fascinating way to look at the science that so many people have been talking about since Aristotle. Aristotle has written about lucid dreaming, and in the last decade, we have proof. Here's cold frontal lobe, right? So here's active frontal lobe, and in lucid dreaming, proven by the electrical activity, you have a little bit more activation and elevation of that executive network. Lucid dreaming is real. The other thing about lucid dreaming, to my pleasant surprise, is that it can be learned. People can learn to lucid dream. I say, okay, I need proof, right? There's measurements, and then there's interpretation. I started with erotic dreams, so I let you know, look, I'm thinking this through, but I don't have it all figured out. Here's the measurement. This doesn't require interpretation. This is proof that lucid dreaming exists. The second proof that lucid dreaming exists and can be learned and induced is there's a medicine called galantamine we use for people with dementia. And when that dose is too high or too low, people come in saying, I'm having a lot of these, I'm becoming aware, I'm in the dream, and you're like, wait a second, this is lucid dreaming. And there is a study where they were given galantamine, a group of patients, they had a bump in lucid dreaming. They doubled the dose of galantamine, and the lucid dreaming also went up. When there's a dose-linked, we call it dose-dependent escalation, when you give more and the effect is more, that's causality. And so it's a biological electrochemical phenomenon. It's not just somebody describing something. And then the last bit, what they're doing in sleep labs is, remember I said the body was paralyzed in sleep paralysis, your mind has come to, but your body's still locked down, and that freaks you out, and you can't take in a full breath. We did that explanation. The eyes are not locked down. So what they're doing is asking people to take that medicine, certain techniques to increase the lucid dreaming they might be able to exhibit, and then they'll take them to sleep labs, they'll prove they're actually asleep with the measurements of a sleep spindle, and then they communicate with them with left and right eye movements, a little bit like Morse code. They rehearse it, the patient falls asleep. When they achieve lucidity, they start doing left-right eye signals in a way that's not random eye movements. And so they're studying it, they're taking medicines for it, they're rehearsing how you could lucid dream more, And what's really important to me is then going and proving that they have learned to lucid dream. So this is a part of the book where I thought, there's no way this is backed by science. And lucid dreaming actually had the most rigorous science. So this has been a wonderful exploration for me as well, to learn about the brain now from the lens of the dreaming mind. Can we feed our dreams? It's a big question. Sleep entry is a time, it's a hybrid time, a little bit awake, a little bit asleep. And Dolly's commented on it, Edison's commented on it, Christopher Nolan's movie Inception comments on it, that the thinking and the emotions and the feeling during that time, it's sort of a blurry liminal state. And the thoughts you have during that time, the riddles or the puzzles you're working about, the things you might read, they may populate your dreaming brain, which is vibrantly active, right? 6-7 hours, something intense is going on. How do we feed that? And Dolly thought during this window, the sleep entry, that's where much of his creative thoughts came from. He would feed them into them, and then during sleep exit, try to remember what was happening. Does that happen every time? Unlikely. We're chasing something elusive here. But this is something I've applied in my life too, is during sleep entry and sleep exit, if you have the luxury of a bed and time and not to set the alarm, these are unique portals in your life. Of course, you're awake, and of course, you're asleep and dreaming. But the transition states there, or the lucid dreaming hybrid state in the middle, if I've had good ideas, they've come from sleep exit. When I don't go to my email and I linger in my thoughts a bit and then I write them down, I've often been surprised by how useful they were. The aha moments for me come during sleep entry and sleep exit. So yes, you can feed your dream. And then the example that stuck to me was when black and white television went to color and black and white print went to color print, the dream reports huge spike in color. Dreams went technicolor as our world went to color television. So of course our waking life feeds our dream life, and our dream life feeds our waking life. It's just a matter of to what degree, how to remember our dreams, how to know of these hybrid liminal states where we have the potential. There's no guarantee. There's not a list here today. Do these 6 things and you are a dreaming savant. No. It's to entice you that if you are thinking about wellness or self-exploration, that our dreaming brain is the portal that's accessible to all of us, and it's free. So yes, you can feed your dream. There is evidence for that. To which degree, you'll have to figure out on your own, but that is the area that you want to explore. Can dreams predict the future? This is a big one, right? Where do dreams come from? Thousands of years, gods in the heavens, omens. 100 years ago, 70 years ago, human brain. Can dreams predict the future? Well, if gods and omens are being inserted into an inactive flesh in an inactive body that wakes up, right? Imagine like sleeping under the stars and waking up and saying, I just had the wildest thoughts. And wondering, where do those come from? They couldn't have come from the person that was just lying there, immobile, unconscious. They had to come from the heavens. Well, similarly, if they came from the heavens, maybe, there were some clues about what's gonna happen, right? They call them precognitive dreams. Do dreams predict the future? And this is sort of a finessed answer. The answer is yes, but only in one case. And the case is something related to health. So this is a neuron zoomed in. A neuron is not flat like a piece of string. It's got a nucleus in it. It's got a community of structures in there, mitochondria and different proteins. It's active. And then it's got these tentacles that are axons. In Parkinson's, neurons get damaged. The machinery inside builds a molecular sludge. The electricity doesn't fire as well. Their movements become rigid. Their speech becomes stifled. There's something called REM behavior disorder, which is, I think, better called dream enactment behavior, DEB. middle-aged men in their 50s, when they act out their dreams, 90-something%, 15 years in the future, will develop Parkinson's. And that's biological data that a dream can be a harbinger of something in the future. And in this case, it's the degeneration of the brain. How powerful is that? That the first warning flare of a brain that will eventually become damaged and a mind that will become damaged is a change in dreaming patterns 15 years before. As a clinician, I just took my breath away. That even if it's just in this scenario, you only need to see a unicorn once to say, yeah, there is a unicorn. The dreams, in that way, reveal what will happen with the human brain. They predict what will happen in the human brain. Similarly, I would say, think about nightmares in adults. If they arrive for you when you don't have nightmares, if they're not just occasional, but there's an increasing number of nightmares, they arrive, they persist, they're increasing. That's something to pay attention to. The development of nightmare disorder in adults, maybe that's a flare, maybe that's a warning sign about your mental health, when during the day you're not even thinking you have any issues going on. Maybe it's a warning sign because, again, going back to the original thing we talked about, it's a hyper-emotional state, the dreaming brain. It's giving you clues that your waking brain cannot access or tap into. So I'm giving you these examples not to make it like we go out there today and everything can be figured out with dreaming, but dreaming is this elusive thing that I think highlights capacities within the human brain and body that we have yet to discover. You say, okay, that's a big topic, so I'll give you another unicorn. Those same Parkinson's patients, when they have the rigidity in movement and they have the tightness in speech, when they have that dream enactment behavior and they're fighting off somebody in their dreams and the bed partner ends up being injured, that's how they come to the hospital. The Parkinson's patients that have had dream enactment behavior and have it now, when they're flailing around in their dreams, their movements are fluid. They no longer have the Parkinson's rigidity when their body is under the control of the dreaming mind. That's fact. Look it up. Paradoxical kinesis. And when I read that, I just had to have that in the book. Even if that's the only example that we'll ever find, doesn't it just change the way you think about yourself, about your brain, about the dreaming mind? Can dreams be interpreted? So this is the last slide, and then we'll take a bunch of questions, but I want to give this one a little bit of time again. So when we started this conversation, I showed you this slide, right? Because I'm coming at it from this perspective. The frontal lobe here is the activity's dampened, and the way you should think about your brain is not, off and on. It's not a switch. It's always on. It's just a matter of what's dominant. Is it 51, 52% executive network that's active? Or is it 51, 52% imagination network, the biggest example of that being dreaming that's active? You're always toggling. When you're mind wandering, it's almost 50-50. When you're daydreaming, if I went to Hawaii, if I went to London, this would happen. Maybe it's 51-49. When you're dreaming, it's like 53 imagination network and 47 executive network. So think of your brain as a modulation, a thermostat, not on-off. Where does creativity live? This spot. No, it doesn't work like that. And how do I know that? They put people thinking about book cover designs and poetry, and they put them in these fancy scanners, and you can look at the studies for that, but the measurement is, to be creative, you have to toggle and let the imagination network become slightly dominant, to come up with the ideas, to be imaginative, to have divergent thinking. And then you have to have the executive network return with the frontal lobes coming back and say, is that a good idea? Or is that just a wild idea? It has to be applicable. It has to be put to use. So your life, whether you like it or not, in a day, you're going from executive network when you're awake, being mostly dominant, to imagination network being dominant while you're dreaming, right? That's a 24-hour cycle that you go into in extremes. In the middle of your day, you're toggling closer to a balance between imagination and executive network. When there isn't a task that's on outward, then what your brain does, it doesn't rev down. Just like when you fall asleep, you don't rev down. When the task outward is controlled, or you're driving and it's a road you're familiar with, or you're shaving, or you're riding a bike, the imagination network comes back up. You're always toggling between imagination network and executive network. So when you talk about interpreting dreams, that neuroscientific explanation is for a point. When you are dreaming, let me just give you a tiny bit of example here. These little dots are the neuronal bodies. They're like if neurons are like jellyfish, they're like the circular meaty part. The tentacles all reach down this way to your brainstem, out to your body. The surface of your brain is where a lot of the magic happens. So that's why we stimulate the brain to understand it. It's not, there's a three-dimensional component to your brain. It's not just like flan or cake and homogeneous like a liver all the way through. The neurons sit on the canopy. They send in branches down the middle to your legs and arms. But there's another canopy. And that's, see that? And that's the limbic emotional system. So when you are dreaming, this part here, the frontal lobes, rev down a little bit, and this part is liberated so much that you couldn't get there if you were awake and had some terrible or wonderful emotional experience. It would not get to the top speed that the emotional system here, the limbic system they call it, can do in dreaming. So when you interpret dreams, keep that in mind. I think there's 5 ways to look at them. First is the dream that requires no deciphering. You're nervous about a presentation, you have a dream, you show up naked to a podium or something. All right, you know what that is. We don't have to talk about that. Or, you know, you have fear of heights and something's scaring you and you're worried about that. Or you have an exam and you have a dream that you woke up and you were late. The waking brain anxiety fits the dreaming brain anxiety. That one requires no interpretation. Then there are genre dreams, where towards the end of life, some of my cancer patients, they're struggling with their journey. They'll have expansive dreams about reconciliation and such. Those dreams are, your waking life is so intense that your dreaming life is a predictable companion to those experiences and emotions. That happens also with pregnancy. Common dreams about rolling over and the kids in the bed with you. Moms who are pregnant, they'll report that. So there's a dream that doesn't need deciphering. There are the genre dreams that are clear. There's also the universal dreams, nightmares and erotic dreams, which happen in children and preteens, and to me, our cognitive development, just like we learn to walk and talk. I think nightmares and erotic dreams develop the human mind so it can be mature. Then there's junk dreams, like it's just static. We don't hold waking life to a standard where everything has to be smart, every idea has to be clever. And so that fourth category is you're gonna have, dreams, they're gonna let off solar flares that are useless. So which ones to go after? Which ones to think about the next day? Because your dreaming brain is in a hyper-emotional state, can be in a hyper-emotional state, the ones to go after, and also visual, but the ones you have a lingering, long emotional residue with, to me, those are the ones to reflect upon. Those are the ones to think about the next day, because they may offer you an insight into your life and into your mind, into your waking life, that you simply couldn't get elsewhere. This is the therapist built in. These are the portals to your subconscious, the emotional dreams that happen in the dreaming brain, and the occasional memory and the residue that lingers with you as you wake up.